After Game 3's trash talk got heated, Montrezl Harrell used a derogatory term towards Luka Doncic. Before Game 4 between the Clippers and Mavs, Harrell apologized to Luka. The pair hugged it out before tip-off. Perk back here with us. Stephen A., I'll start with you. Is it fair to let Harrell off the hook here?
I believe it is. Number one, you're in the heat of competition. Number two, listen, he apologized. He manned up. And that's the most important thing there. He didn't need a statement. He didn't need a press conference. He didn't need to be prodded and pushed by the NBA or by the team himself. He was man enough to recognize that in the heat of competition, even under those circumstances, particularly the sensitive times that we're living in, it was ill-advised and inappropriate for him to say what he said to Luka Doncic. And so as a result of that, I give him props, but I give Luka Doncic even more props for accepting the apology and moving forward as contemporaries in the National Basketball Association. The one thing that I'd like to add to that, on so many occasions, there are so many people out there that would like to sit up there and say, well, guess what? If the white guy had said that to the black guy, called them a boy, or called them an N-word, you know what? Imagine how it would have been. It's a double standard. My response is, you're damn right, A, and so what? The fact of the matter is, when you consider the iniquities that have taken place throughout American history as it pertains to the treatment of black men, there is no question that to some degree there's going to be a double standard, that to some degree that the reactions are not going to be the same. Because when you, even though he's Slovenian, and obviously he's not an American citizen, we all understand that the lighter your pigmentation has been in this nation, the lighter your hue, the better you have been treated in comparison to those of darker hue and darker pigmentation, particularly from disenfranchised communities in this nation. That is an historical fact. It cannot be denied. And so as a result of that, when you see sometimes an imbalance, the imbalance is in an effort to sort of equal the playing field. And it's something similar to what I brought up to Max months ago, which I'm sure he'll appreciate. It's like somebody complaining that if you're black and guess what, you're given a head start, you're given a 25 or 50 yard advantage. Well, excuse me, what kind of advantage do you think you had for 400 years? Those are the kind of things that we're looking at. Because if you don't give some, I'm saying, I'm not using the word like literally an advantage. I'm saying if you don't give some leniency and understanding and some sort of a head start, then we'll never catch up from a societal perspective. And that's where I'm coming from with that.
That's exactly where I wanted to start. Advantage, 25-yard head start. White people put black people 500 yards behind them and then said, here, take 25 yards. And then some white people are complaining about the 25 yards. You're still up by 475 yards, geniuses. Hey, look, the bottom line is this about double standards. If you're stupid enough to not understand this, or maybe you, I don't even want to call someone names. Maybe you just genuinely don't understand it. Let me make it simple. Would you trade being oppressed for 400 years, enslaved, making, if you were literate, it was a crime. Your family, you could be separated from your children, sold up, or the Reconstruction, you're a second-class citizen, you don't have access to housing or jobs, et cetera, et cetera. Would you trade 400 plus years of that for having access to a few words that white people shouldn't really say publicly, right? What? That's the trade-off? And the white people are complaining about this? Look, let me tell you something. Do you know how many times I've been called white boy in my life? I've never been insulted. All that means, Luka Doncic is a totally elite player in the NBA, is you are a white person, male, in this case, if you're a white boy, in the presence of people who are mostly not white, who are mostly black, African American usually, right? So among elite players in the NBA, if you see someone like Porzingis, a ball-handling guy who's an MVP caliber player, like, oh, okay, that's what it's just identifying the person by something unusual about them given their position. Now, would I be offended about the white boy part if I was Porzingis? Not at all. That's nothing. I'd be offended by the B-A part. I'd be like, who? What? Who are you calling? That's the real part. It's not the white boy. It's what's preceded the white boy. That could be a fight or should be beef, right? So that's the real offensive part. But even then, Montrez came to him the next day, all right, look, it's not about that. And Doncic is like, forget it. You think Doncic is worried about what someone says about him? Doncic is a gangster. Doncic is alpha. He came into the NBA basically barely beyond his teen years. It was like, I don't care about any of you. He's doing his thing. He's not rattled by that in the slightest. And good on Montrez for saying, all right, my bad, I shouldn't have said that. But for anyone who thinks, or wants to make the point that there's a double standard, before you fix your mouth to say that, just consider the total circumstance for a second and save yourself the embarrassment.
Well, I mean, both of you guys are right. Growing up in the African-American community, I've heard far worse. I mean, playing at the park, even playing in the league, playing between those lines, it's a competitive sport. I've heard worse, I've said worse. But does that make Montrez right about what he said? Absolutely not, right? But it's a competitive game. All right, he apologized, he manned up, and Luka accepted it. I feel like we need to move on. Now, what Montrez messed up at is, he shouldn't have poked that bear. He shouldn't have told him that because he woke up a sleeping giant. People say that Luka wasn't offended. I believe he was offended by watching them play last night and what he did to the Clippers, because the Clippers, listen, the Clippers have a deep team. They have Kawhi Leonard, who's a champion. They have a championship coaching staff, but nobody else on that team has won a championship. And they do a lot of barking. They do a lot of barking, no biting. They do a lot of barking and no biting. Now they have to back it up. So what they should have did, he barked up the wrong tree by waking up this 21-year-old stud in Luka Doncic. But, you know, the way he handled it, I appreciate Montrez, right, for going up, being a bigger person, squash it. But right now I'm looking at the Los Angeles Clippers, and they're beefing more on social media with people than they're beefing with the guys on the court and handling their business. So just to switch the topic for a minute, the Clippers need to get their priorities together and go out on the court and perform and quit worrying about what's going on and all this barking and go out there and start doing some biting. But on the flip side of it, I think, you know, they handled it, they squashed it between them two, and let it be gone. Let it be over.
Well, KP, I think you're right on all your points, but I think the basketball element of this is secondary for the purposes of this discussion. I think what you brought up about Montrezl Harrell apologizing, and you also brought up about the noise that the Clippers appear to be making in social media, I think those are the two biggest points. And this is why I think we should take a moment to appreciate Montrezl Harrell and Luka Doncic and what we saw from them. First of all, Luka Doncic is European. He's not white. You know, when we talk about slavery in this country and whatever, that's conflating the issues to some degree. I get all of that. I was talking about the color of your skin and why Montrezl said what he said. But in the end, his willingness to apologize and Luka Doncic's willingness to accept it is a big thing because, KP, you know this is a former player in the NBA. The guys, there are not everybody, not most, but there are far too many guys in professional sports that are mentally soft when it comes to absorbing criticism. They can't look at it on face value and think about what you say. They're listening to who reacts to it, what the reactions are to what people say, and they react off of that, heightening their level of sensitivity, and they respond and retaliate in a very immature fashion. And sometimes that leads to trouble. And so when we see guys that man up like Montrezl just did and embraces that apology the way Luka did and then move on their merry way, it's basically about how things should be between two men. You got a difference, you discuss it, you handle it, you move on. And unfortunately, we don't see that enough. But we saw that with them, and it's a model of how things should be when people have differences. And that's why that's what I think should be highlighted and pointed out and appreciated.
No doubt about it, but the main problem with Montrez is he lied. Like Luka gave him that work. If you say be a white boy to Luka, the B better mean bad. He's a bad a white boy because he gave
apologized
him that
before the
work
game,
and then
Max.
won the game.
But he apologized before the game.
I get it.
But he apologized before the game.
I get it. But it's not like Luka hasn't been giving everyone work since he got in the league. There's not like the main problem with what Montrez said was not the white boy part. The main problem was what preceded it. Number one, it's not true. And number two, them's fighting words. I mean, that's what it is.